We're going to continue with the section of Lech Lecha. We're on page 70. Breshit Yudalid Kaf Aleph, Genesis 14:21, on the right-hand column. Vayomer, and he said, with a mercha, so lightly connected to what's come from before, but mostly moving the narrative forward. Following Melchizedek's praises and blessings, a leading king of the area approached, and he said that in spite of Avram's modesty, he deserved at least a minimal reward for his campaign of salvation, as indicated by the directional shape of the reading mark. So he's connecting this to the last sentence, which talked about Melchizedek, and moving the story towards Melech Stom with the tipcha, with the closing note, looking backwards. Number 2, it was the opinion of the king of Stom that material compensation for losses and expenses should be carried by the beneficiaries and allotted to the commander and fighting units, as shown by the closing shape of the directional reading mark. So Melech Stom is contending that because Abraham was involved in this battle, he needs to be compensated because of that, and he's trying to tie him to the fate of everyone who's there. El Avram, with the stabilizing et Mechta. Number 3, he proposed to Avram a fair settlement which would satisfy everyone involved, as stressed by the stabilizing shape of the reading mark. And we'll notice that there's a pause after the tipcha, and El Avram to Avram. Avram is going to stand alone in this equation. So Melech Stoma's idea is over here, and Avram's going to be over there. And further, to make Avram stand alone, Tain Li with a munach. So this has again a demarcation for what's come from before it, and moving forward into what's going to go after it. Number 4, you give for me the inhabitants so that they shall be able to start their lives again, as denoted by the shape of the reading mark. So again, I think the important part here is that we've got a demarcation of Avram from both Melech Stom and everybody else who's involved. Hanefesh, the soul, with a katon, 2-part note with a pause afterwards. They shall be able to satisfy the desires of the soul and the tradition of their ancestry, as pointed out by the bipartite shape of the reading mark. So normally in this sentence, when you read Hanefesh, you would think he was talking about the people. But here, because again this parish is unique in assigning an entire thought idea to every word group that's assigned a note, we need to talk more about Hanefesh. So it's not talking about the people, it's talking about them being able to have what is needed to satisfy their souls. And therefore it can be the lower and the higher things that satisfy their souls, but that's what it's talking about, rather than identifying them as beings, as souls. The harachush, and the wealth, with a tipcha, backwards looking note and a slight pause afterwards. However, their possessions and the wealth you have recovered shall compensate for your troubles and disbursements, as referred backwards by the directional shape of the reading mark. So the possessions are tied to the souls, but that's what Melech Stom is offering here. Kachlach, take for you, with a stabilizing sof pasuk. Since the people did not expect to return alive, they gave up their possessions, which you actually got from nowhere. Thus, you shall take for you all material goods without any hesitation. So the Gemara tells us that kach, that word, is in Kedushin. The Gemara in Kedushin tells us that whenever we see the word kach, we're talking about taking possession of something. We're talking about you exerting your mastery over something. So here, what what we're trying to explain is that this is something that was made hefker. This is something that was made ownerless. The people thought they were going to die, and therefore they said, I don't need my chest of clothes over there. I need my life, and anything that I'm willing to, everything else I'm willing to part with. So all of these things were already made ownerless. So he's telling Avram, you can take these things because we no longer really had ownership over them. So this taking is separate from hanefesh, separate from the people. And the concept of it being rechush, of it being somebody else's property, that's not there anymore. So the taking is because the people have been completely separated out from their possessions. As we read through, we'll notice again that I pointed out Avram's isolation in the middle of this, that we're going to have pauses both before and after his name in order to say that Melech Sdom is putting him in a situation where he's apart from everything else that was in the scenario, and the equivalent of that is kachlach. That Avram he's going to put him in the position of being the one who actually has to actively lay a claim to everything by sort of denying that anybody else has a claim to it anymore. So he's sort of setting a trap for him. He's trying to put Avraham in the place where Avram has to say, okay, thank you very much. You go about your lives, and I'm gonna dispossess you all. So if Avram does take anything, then even though he might have deserved it as the victor, he's also taken on the role of the one who dispossessed, even though the dispossession was done by the first people who conquered them, not Avram. Yomer Melech Sdom El Avram Tein li hanefesh v'harachush kachlach. So that wasn't emphasized so much in the text, but I think it truly stands out from the pauses that are here, that this is sort of what's the underlying scheme. The next page, 71, on the left-hand column, Vayomer, and he said, lightly connected to what's come from before, but moving forward with the Mercha. Number one, Avram responded to the proposition of Sdom's king, and he said that he did not deserve any praise, gifts, or anything else, as indicated by the directional shape of the reading mark. So again, connected to the concept of what's been proposed before, but Avram, number two, closing the phrase with the tipcha, Avram stated that whatever he did was not intended for personal gain or fame, but to fulfill his ideological duties, which derive from his personal conviction, as shown by the closing shape of the directional reading mark. So Avram here is not only his name, but denoting his personal philosophy and what he's trying to put into the world. And there we're going to pause. And again, we're going to separate Avram out from El Melech, because the Tipcha has a pause and the Menach has a pause, so these two are as far apart as they can be for two words that are sitting next to each other. Number three, El Melech. This explanation gave directly to a king who was the speaker for others of his area, as stressed by the shape of the reading mark. So because it's moving forward from there, but separated from Avram, he's the king who is with the other kings, i.e. moving forward, and he is the one who's in the conversation because Vayomer Avram. I agree it's a little bit of a reach to get what's in that paragraph from the Menach. But I see that he's the representative for the other kings from the forward movement of a munach. Sodom, with the stabilizing etnachta of Sdom, number 4. Since the city of Sdom was a principal center of the district, its ruler was recognized as the most important representative. And again, etnachta has a stabilizing position or function, and a little bit of an elevation in the center, so it says that it is the most important. So Sdom being the most important of the cities, the king of Sdom becomes the most important representative, as denoted by the stabilizing shape of the reading mark. Number 5, harimoti, I lifted, with a pashta, emphasizing the word slightly but pushing the narrative forward to what goes afterwards. All I did to get positive results was by no means a credit to me. With my prayers, I lifted my confidence in heavenly guidance, asking for support to fulfill my obligations in a right direction, as suggested by the directional shape of the reading mark. So almost demonstrably pointing upwards. So we're almost using that as an arrow pointing upwards, the pashta. Avram is both and again, because the notes here will define an entire paragraph, we do something that no other parish would do. Harimoti yadi, I lifted up my hands. We don't talk anything about hands in this paragraph. In paragraph number 5, I lifted my confidence in heavenly guidance. So I'm looking upwards, and my ein yavo ezri. Where's my help going to come from? So it has nothing to do with anything that he did physically with his hands. And I think that's again something unique that we're going to see here that you're not going to see anybody else saying about that word. Yadi, with a mahpach. So this is going to focus the idea of what's come from before into a more narrow point. Number 6, my intentions I indicated by my hands, which, like my convictions, were strengthened from above, as expressed by the shape of the reading mark. So very, very tidily here, what he's doing is he's taking what he gave in the last idea in Harimoti, and now he's saying the actions that I did with my hands have the same focus of taking what was divine, what was from above. So both my confidence and my actions, what I did with my hands, are both influenced from above. And that's the focusing idea of the Mapach. And another Pashta, El Hashem, number 7, to God. Consequently, all your admiration, credit, and gifts actually belong to God, who made you believe that I was the successful leader, as specified by the shape of the directional reading mark. So again, in every statement by Avram, we see him trying to relay philosophical ideas to people, and to convince people of his way of dealing with events in the world. And again, we do something that we wouldn't do in another parish. We take this word itself, and it's Harimoti Yadi El Hashem. I raised up my hands to God. That's what the phrase says. But here we've seen that each of them is talking about an idea in and of itself, and he's saying that what you need to do is you need to focus on God's intervention here. And not that I lifted my hands up there, but that the events here have to focus you that way as well. So again, we're using this pashta like we use the other pashta, pointing upwards. Kel, a god, with a separating munach, so this is slightly separated from what's come from before, but mostly moving the story forward. Thus, the God of heaven is a God of all life and in charge of all events, as illustrated by the shape of the reading mark. So he is separating out the concept of Hashem from all other powers or deities that anybody else might worship, and that's his audience. Elyon, a supreme, with the two parts katon, Number 9, he is a supreme ruler and controls all other kings, regardless of their greatness and might, as pointed out by the bipartite shape of the reading mark. So God is above and you're below, and he's again separated out the word Elyon from Kel, not saying that we're talking about other deities. He says that we're talking about other kings. So you who think you have power over your people, God has power over you. And again, that's sort of unique to the approach that we find here, that the word Elyon again is divorced from Kel. Koneh, possessing with a tipcha, backwards focused and pausing slightly afterwards. He is the one possessing infinite powers and absolute wisdom, from where he apportions something to individuals as well as referred backwards by the directional shape of the reading mark. And here we're using this as a foil against kachlach from the last sentence, that Melech Sdom is saying, Avram, you exert your influence, and Avram is saying, well, no, I have no influence. It's God who has the influence, and I've just happened to be the one who he worked through, and everything belongs to him, and he supersedes not only you, but me as well. Shamayim, heavens, with the mercha, lightly connected to what's come from before, but mostly moving forward. The heavens and the whole universe are his undivided domain, and he keeps them in proper order for right functions, as conveyed by the directional shape of the reading mark. So here we're lightly connected to God's possession of these things, and therefore he's the one who controls them and is the one who has the rights to do with them as he pleases. So that's the idea of dominion. And what's going to happen with them going forward, our main thought, is what God wants, not what I want and not what you want. So lightly connected to what's come from before. Sure, the possessions are there, but they are not yours, not mine. And God is going to do with them going forward what he wants. Va'aretz, with the stabilizing sof pasuk. In spite of the general coordination of all planets, every individual occurrence on each one is a result of his sole decision. This principle indicates everything and earth, where each event, even of an individual, is foreseen and controlled without any lapse. So here the stability is that God's will is what is maintaining the status quo. And we have remarks, Harimoti Yadi, I lifted my hand, asking for heavenly support, just like Kasher Yarim Moshe Yado Begavar Yisrael, with the battle with Amalek. When Moses would lift up his hands, then the people of Israel would win. And again, Rashi asks the question, V'chi Yadav Shel Moshe Osot Milchama, do Moses' hands really make the war successful? Ela Bizman, rather at the time, She Yisrael Mistaklim Klape Mala, when the people of Israel look upwards, Umishabdim et libam le'avim shebashamayim, and they make their hearts subservient to their heavenly Father. Hayu mitgabrim. That's when the people of Israel would win the war. So Harimoti Yadi has nothing to do with lifting my hands. It has to do with what you look beyond someone's raised hands. And second comment about that, Harimoti Yadi al Hashem kelayon kaneh shamayim va'aretz. This formulation of Avram contains the fundamental difference between him and Melchizedek, who actually said the same thing, but omitted the name of God. So let's go back to what Melchizedek says. So Melchizedek says, first of all, Baruch Avram Lakel Yon Kaneh Shamayim Va'aretz. He says, Abraham should be blessed, Uvaruch Kel Yon, and God should be blessed after he blesses Abraham. Asher Begain Sarecha B'Yadecha, who delivered the ones who were fighting against you into your hands. So there he uses the hands as the hands of Avram. And here, and to focus on Avram's victory. And here we're saying that we have to focus on what God did, and he's going to be the one who decides how things are apportioned afterwards, and it's really not up to us to make that decision. So as we read through the sentence, we're going to notice again the demarcation between Avram and Melech Sdom. The two of them are as far apart as words that are close to each other can be. Harimoti Adil Hashem Kel Elyon. That again, we're saying that each of these are separate paragraphs, that we're thinking in both our thoughts and our actions, that God is the one who is above both me and you. Koneh, connected to that, but then pausing again. It's all his, it's not ours. And then Shamayim Va'aretz, that's what God is going to do. He's going to be the one who determines the way that things are dispersed. So again, we see that separation, that, all of these things God did, and they're his. And he's going to decide what to do with them. And hopefully the overemphasized pauses will sort of convey that same thing. Yomer Avram, Melech Sodom, Harimoti, Yadi El Hashem, Kel Elyon, Koneh, Shamayim Va'aretz. We are at the bottom of page 72. Im Michut, whether from a thread with a pashta. So again, an emphasizing an emphasis to the word, but mostly drawing us forward from there. Whether from a thread, number one, because I do not expect any help or gifts from men, I do not rely on any awards granted to me by people. Whether from a thread, with a typo, a most negligible object, or one of substantial value, as indicated by the directional shape of the reading line. And here I didn't quite understand the idea of this being something of something of value. I mean, there are more expensive threads and less expensive threads, but I'm not quite sure where that thought entered into the note. Ve'ad, until, with a munach, so strongly separated from what's come from before and moving us forward. Number two, I do not have any desire for a most primitive gift or an expensive one, until most precious assets of immense wealth, as shown by the shape of the reading line.
So don't underestimate the value of a shoelace.
And again, I'm missing where in the note we see that it is something of great expense that's included here as well. So I get the idea of primitive, because a chut is something that, a thread is something that has not yet been formed into anything. So it has potential, but no real function yet. But sroch na'al, a lace of a shoe, is at least something that is fashioned, so something that has some organization to it. But again, we're certainly not going to anything that is expensive. So whether this is something that is purely a raw material, or something that is the most minor of fashioned items, with the two-part katon, number three, I do not have any expectation even for a domestic facility to be constructed by application of a lace of a shoe, signifying the kind of art at that time. as pointed out by the bipartite shape of the reading mark, and I'm sure there's an archaeological reason that he made that comment. But again, we're talking about something that is, again, raw material versus a construct. And we have a second comment, Michut na'al ve'ad siroch. And again, I'm not quite sure why he turned the words around, and I have a thinking that might be a typo. Actually.
Yeah.
Actually, there is no basis for comparison by contrast. A thread derives from vegetation, while a shoelace is connected with leather, deriving from the hide of cattle and animals, which contribute to wealth. And we are talking about I just think if these are different categories of beings. So we roughly divide everything in the world into things that are inanimate, things that are plant life that have some growth but no ability to move, things that are animal life that have the ability to move but no free will per se, and things that are medavir, things that are speaking, that are people. So we are talking about the two categories in the middle, that this is something either from plant life or something from animal life. So the question is, why are we talking about the two middle categories, not the highest categories? Well, he doesn't want the people, so we've already said he doesn't want the highest category. Why aren't we going way back to raw materials? Why isn't he saying, I don't want the rocks, I don't want the the iron, and I don't have a specific answer, but both of these are examples of those middle two categories, but that is what separates the two of them out. Ve'im ekach, and whether I will take, with a tipcha, focusing us backwards and pausing slightly afterwards. I adhere strictly to my concept of enjoyment of what belongs to me, and whether I will take a minimal object or an object of great value, I will prove to be a hypocrite lying to myself, as referred backwards by the directional shape of the reading mark. So if I take possession of them, then I have sort of foiled God's plans that he's going to be the one who's going to distribute these things. Therefore, I am not going to assert mastery here. And again, we pause because Avram's taking mastery is going to separate itself out from whatever Melech Stom and whatever the other people have there, Mikol Asher Lach, from everything that for you, with the stabilizing et nachta. I want to derive pleasure from that which was appointed for me. However, from everything that for you should be subjected to your own decisions and enjoyment, as stressed by the stabilizing shape of the reading mark. And again, this is Avraham preaching basic philosophy to those people who have just offered him wealth. This is what he's giving them in exchange, and rather than take the material goods, he has seen this as an opportunity to give them a lesson. Hashem haaretz u'mloah. Everything that's in the world belongs to God, and he is going to decide what's going to happen with it. And if he puts it into your sphere of influence, it is because you, being the one who controls that thing, is going to either make you better or make that thing better, or really make both of them have the potential to live up to what they could be. And that's what he's trying to convey. And I think at this point he is telling them that, or he's telling us that this is the best use that he could have for these material possessions, is to teach the object lesson that nothing is really yours. And that is the best use that Avram feels he can make with these assets, is to not take possession of them, to show others what possessions really are. Velo, and not, strongly separated by the Menach, and moving forward beyond that.